Hey guys, it's Alexandra from EyeLoveKnots.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make these coasters. They are worked in really simple single crochet stitches. This is my Shay Coasters. I have the written pattern for it on my EyeLoveKnots blog, which I will link in the description below. These are about 4 inches wide. I'm using 100% cotton. This is Dishie worsted weight cotton from WeCrochet or Knit Picks. They are the same company. This is my favorite cotton yarn because the colors are color fast, which means they are set. I really love Lily Sugar and Cream for the texture and all the colors that are available. Plus I can go down to Joann's or Michael's and pick it up. But the colors are not color fast. So colors like blue and green, if you were to wash it and put it down on a white paper towel, you would be able to pick up the coaster and see the color that's been left behind. Even the colors that don't stain paper towels, like yellow and gray, they just fade. So they're not bleeding on things, but they're just continuously fading. And that really upsets me when I'm gifting these things or I am selling them. I want to be confident in the color and the quality, so that is why I love Dishie yarn for my own projects and others. Now, if you don't want to use cotton yarn or you don't have any cotton yarn, you can use acrylic yarn for coasters like Red Heart Super Saver. What we caution with using acrylic yarn, synthetic yarns, when you're doing things that have hot things on top, is that synthetic yarns are man-made out of plastic. So acrylic yarn and polyester, those are synthetic yarns. So if you were to put something really hot, like something fresh out of the oven, onto a coaster or trivet that you made with like acrylic yarn, it would melt all of the fibers. They're also flammable at a certain temperature and you could burn yourself. So that's why we always recommend that you just use cotton when you have hot things. But if the only thing that you're putting on this coaster is a hot cup of coffee, your coffee is not going to be hot enough to melt the acrylic fiber. So if you wanted to use Red Heart Super Saver for your coasters, you absolutely could. I think you'd probably need to go up a hook size because cotton's a little bit more relaxed. But I have granny square coasters that I made out of Red Heart Super Saver and I use them all the time. The only thing is with cold beverages, they don't absorb the moisture as well. So when your cup is sweating, it still does. It just doesn't do it as well as the cotton. For these coasters, I'm using an H8 5mm crochet hook. If the finished gauge, the finished size is not important to you, then use this crochet hook in any cotton yarn that you have. If you're going to do acrylic, I recommend going up a hook size just because I know it's going to come out smaller. But if the finished size really isn't essential to you, you don't have to take gauge and you don't have to switch crochet hooks. My secret to weaving ends in with cotton yarn is jewelry pliers. I will show you how to weave the ends in using my secret tool at the end of this video. So if you have jewelry pliers, they are a really big help whenever you're working with cotton yarn. If you don't have them, no big deal. You just weave in your ends as normal. So you're also going to want a soft tape measure if gauge is important. If the finished size is important, you want your soft tape measure so you can take gauge. And gauge is going to be over 6 stitches. I will show you that after row 4. I will show you how to take your gauge. So let's get started. If you do not have Dishie, some great alternatives are Peaches and Cream, Lily Sugar and Cream, Burnett Handicrafter. Hobby Lobby has one called Crafter Secret. Crafter Secret is probably the closest in thickness to this one. This one is thinner than what Lily Sugar and Cream uses, or what the thickness of the yarn from Lily Sugar and Cream, even though they're both worsted weight. To get started, I'm going to do a slip knot. So I have my tail end over my fingers. I'm going to I'm going to wrap the yarn around my index finger 2 times, and then I'm going to hold the tension with my middle finger and my thumb. I'll pull the loop that's behind on the left right now, pull it up over the other loop but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the loop that's now on the left up over the other loop and off my finger. Take my crochet hook, put it into the loop that my finger's on. I'm going to continue to hold the working yarn with my right hand, and I'm just going to pull the left one to tighten, just down to normal tension. To chain, we just yarn over the hook and pull it through. Yarn over, pull it through. We have 2 chains there. We want a total of 14. Then we're going to single crochet into the second chain and each chain across. So to do that, this loop that's on our hook does not count. We skip this first chain and we insert our hook into the second chain. Just insert right in there, picking up just one leg. I know this is the back part, the bumpy back part. So I'm just working from the front. I'm just inserting my hook right into the middle. Yarn over, pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. That's a single crochet. We'll work 1 more. Insert your hook into the next chain. Yarn over, pull through. 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. And we're going to continue working all the way across until we're back into that first chain. And at the end of this row, you're going to end up with 13 single crochets. And so I've just finished row 1. I have 13 single crochets here. If you want to know how to count these so you can make sure you have them, you go based off of this is how the fabric looks. Just turn it towards you so that you can see these top stitches. And they look like V's. They have a V shape on them. So this is 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches, 4 stitches, and so on. Each remaining row that we work is going to have 13 single crochets in it, and they're all going to be worked exactly the same as I'm about to show you. So we're going to chain 1, yarn over, pull through. That's a chain. That counts as our turning chain, but does not count as a stitch. Then we're going to single crochet into the first stitch. Just insert our hook under both loops of that top V. Insert our hook, yarn over, pull through. We have 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through both loops. We're just going to work that way all the way across. So single crochet into the first stitch, then single crochet into each stitch across. And at the end of this row, you're going to have 13 single crochets. That's the end of row 2. And you're going to work all of the remaining rows exactly the same. Chain 1, turn, single crochet into the first stitch and each stitch across. You want a total of 14 rows done. And the way we count this, it's easier to see in this finished one, is you can see how the rows have kind of separated themselves into groups of 2. So there's 2, there's 2, there's 2. That's formed by one row is on the right side and one row is on the wrong side. And by just that difference in the textures from turning, that's how we create, or that's how it's created these rows that just go by themselves. So that makes it really easy to count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 until you have 14 rows. And on the fabric that you're working right now we have 2 rows. It's a little bit harder to see, but the row that we just finished, row 2, it looks prettier and more defined, the stitches. That's the right side of the fabric, and if we turn to the other side, you'll notice that the same exact row, it looks more bumpy and less defined, and the stitches even look a little bit different because it kind of looks like an upside down V over here. That's the wrong side of the fabric. So if you turn it back over to how you just worked, you'll notice the difference between row 2 that you just worked and row 1 that you just worked, or that you worked before that on the bottom. So just keep going until you have 14 rows done. I don't have 14 rows done yet, but I wanted to stop right here is a good place. You don't want to ever take gauge in the first couple rows because the fabric is still like forming. So now that I've worked 4 rows, I'm going to go ahead and stop and show you how to take gauge here if this is important to you. Taking gauge is measuring from the end of one stitch, or the beginning of one stitch, all the way over to the end of a different stitch and seeing and taking the measurement. So from here, I'm going to go right up here, which is the very beginning of one of the stitches, and I just want to measure over, let's see here, I'm looking for where the stitch is in an even placement. I don't want like a 1/16 of a stitch, but if I count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches right up to the end of that 6th stitch, it's measuring 1 5/8 inches. So if gauge is important to you, your finished size of this coaster is important to you, you want to go ahead and measure this, measure over 6 stitches, and make sure it measures 1 5/8 inches. If it's larger than that, then you need to change your hook size down to like a G, let's see, a G6, 4.2 or 4 millimeter. If it's measuring smaller than 1 5/8 inches, then you would change this hook to an I9, excuse me, an I9 5.5 millimeter hook. Overall right now, measuring across this top row, I got 3 5/8 inches wide. And it's going to get bigger after I work the final border, the single crochet edge that I have on this one. That's why this edge looks really pretty and even compared to this edge that we're still working on. So I'm going to continue to work until I have my 14 rows done. Alright, so we just finished 14 rows. Right now my coaster is measuring 3.5 inches tall. So the most important gauge is the width, because that's a lot harder to fix later to add anything onto it. And then the height is the easiest one, because let's say this was only measuring 3.25 inches, then you would just add another row on it. The height is so much easier to work with. Now going to just work one final border around the whole entire square just to give it a clean, even edging. So to do that, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. I'm going to work pretty much the same as I did before. I'm going to single crochet into the first stitch, and I'm going to single crochet all the way until I get to this very last stitch. And now that I have just the last stitch left there to work, this is where I'm going to work a corner stitch. I want to increase this corner so that it lays flat wherever you put it down. So I'm going to work a single crochet, chain 1, and then a single crochet into the same exact stitch. So there is actually 2 stitches into that one stitch and that chain, and that's going to increase it just enough so that it lays flat when I put it down. Now I'm going to turn it so that I can work down the side of my coaster. This is how it looks from the, like how we were working it. This bumpy edge, I'm going to single crochet over that evenly. So you will see in a pattern that'll say single crochet or whatever stitch evenly. So when you're working in single crochets, it's 1 single crochet per edge of the row. So for each row, here's a row, you're going to have a single crochet. Here's another row, a single crochet. Here's another row, single crochet. This one is really easy. It's just 1 single crochet per row. So when you're looking at it on the side, you're going to see there's only 2 different types of stitches here. There's this one that we're about to work, and then there's this other one that's right here. They look completely different because that's from the right side and that's the wrong side of the fabric, but they look exactly the same all the way down. That's where you want to work. So our next stitch is going to be right here in between that stitch. The way that you see it right now, there's like this top edge, and then there's a leg right underneath it. You want to insert your hook underneath excuse me, right inside, right in the middle, and you're going to pick up that leg and the one right underneath it. So you're going to end up having 2 loops on your hook. So I just wanted to show you. So we're going to work exactly where we were from the last single crochet. Insert our hook right in the middle of that next stitch, picking up 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through, and then complete the single crochet. Yarn over, pull through both loops. The next one is a lot easier because it's just looks like a little, like a hole. It doesn't have any stitches to pick up really. Just insert your hook right into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, complete the single crochet. So we'll do this repeat one more time. The next stitch we're going to insert right into the middle, and when we do that we pick up 2 loops on our hook. We have 2 loops on there, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. And then the next one, just insert your hook into the next stitch, into that hole, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. And that's how we're going to continue working this row all the way until we get to the very bottom corner. So when you work this row, you're going to end up not counting this single crochet chain 1 single crochet. You're going to have 13 stitches down the side. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Here's number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and one more makes 13. And then where that tail end is coming out from that hole, we're going to work a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet into the same stitch. And you'll have to hold this tail end, because otherwise if you don't hold it, it's going to just open up into a bigger hole. So I'm just holding it here with my middle finger for my left hand while I insert to work that last single crochet. And that's our edge. Now we're going to work across the bottom of the foundation chain. So originally we worked it this way, and now we're just going to crochet across those, into those stitches on the opposite side of where we worked our first row, and all the holes that you see are where you're going to work. So it's basically like the stitches are shown for you. It makes it really easy. We're going to drop that tail into the back because we don't want to stitch over that. Some people, they will cover it up. They will hold it here and you will crochet over. But it limits the stretch of this washcloth. So what I'm going to do later is I'm going to weave it in over here. So I'm just dropping it down. Then I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch and complete my single crochet. And that's it. You just work right into the center, there. And it looks like you're picking up 2 loops. That's where the 2 chains have crossed each other. But it's super simple. So the next one, we want to insert down here in the bottom, not up here at the top. Right into the middle. And you'll just keep working all the way across. When you get to the end, not counting the corner stitch, you're going to have 11 single crochets. So right now I have worked 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, there's 11 single crochets, and now we're going to work another corner stitch right into that very last chain, which looks weird. It looks like it's not even really there. That's from where we skipped one stitch, you know, one chain, and then we worked into the second one, so it kind of folds in on itself. But it is there, and it's exactly the same. There is that little hole right down in there in the middle. That's where we're going to work our single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. And now we just have one final edge to work our border on, and this is done exactly the same way as we did the other side, evenly single crocheting up, 1 single crochet per row. But the difference is that it's opposite and the stitches might look a little bit different. But we're going to work it exactly the same. And at the end of this side, we're going to have 13 single crochets. So we're going to work our first single crochet right into that next stitch right there, which is the one that just looks like a hole. And then we're going to single crochet into the next one, which is this. Before it was much clearer the way that it swooped over. And now we're looking at the back side of it. That's why there's like this little bump here. We're going to insert our hook right in between where that bump is. Here's the bump. And then the other stitch that's down here. Insert your hook not into this hole, but in between both of those stitches, picking up 2 loops. It's a little bit harder, but there's my 2 loops. And I complete my single crochet. And the reason why you don't want to work into that very easy hole down there is that it will create a very large hole gap on the edge when the fabric is sitting flat. So we don't want to do that. So our next stitch is worked right there into just that next hole. And then the next one, again, we don't want to work into that hole. We want to work in between the stitches. So find that bump that's right there next to you, right underneath that, in between that and the next one, and you'll have 2 loops on your hook. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. I want a total of 13 stitches. And so now I've just worked my 13th stitch. Now we're back to the beginning, and to complete this corner we have initially worked 1 single crochet into that stitch. I want to complete it by working another single crochet into the same stitch, and instead of chaining here I'm going to slip stitch join. It's equal to the same stitch length, so if I were to put a chain here, this edge would not be even to the rest of them. It would have like an extra stitch in it. So I'm not chaining here. I'm just going to insert my hook into that first stitch, picking up both loops. Then I'll yarn over, pull through that loop and through the loop that's on my hook. And that's it. Now I'm going to fasten off and weave in my ends. I'm going to show you a different way that you can finish this off. So this is one option, slip stitch join to the first stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do a different join if you're interested in a join that looks identical to the rest of the stitches. Alright, so I grabbed my tapestry needles and my scissors, and I'm going to just fasten off my yarn. And then I'm going to pull on the loop so that it breaks it. So there will no longer be a loop there. And this next way is called an invisible join. I'm going to grab my tapestry needle. The invisible join mimics the look of the stitch we just, the stitch that we just finished. It's going to have the same loop V shape. We're going to, this is what it looks like right now. I have just broken the loop and threaded my tapestry needle. Insert my tapestry needle under both loops of the first stitch, just as if I was inserting my crochet hook, and I'm going to pull that through. Not too tight, just so that it's even tension. And that's the first leg right there. To complete it, I'm going to insert my needle down the center of the last stitch that I worked. And when I do it, I also pick up this loop that's behind it, as I think it adds the support that it needs to keep its shape. But you could also just work right down in the center of that stitch. But I just like to do it into both of these. So I'm still inserting into the center, just closer to the top, so I can pick up that loop right underneath it as well. This is what it looks like from the back side and from the front. And I'm just going to pull it through. And don't pull it too tight, because you want it to look identical. This is the one we just finished right here. It looks identical to the previous stitch and to the first stitch. So if you pull it too tight, then it doesn't look even. And now you just weave your ends in, and it looks like you can't tell where you started and where you finished. So I'm just going to go ahead and weave my ends in now. I'm going to do it down the side border. Just a couple stitches here. And what I like to do, I didn't do it in the beginning here because I didn't have a stitch close enough, but I just inserted it under a couple stitches. When I came out, I didn't come out underneath the whole stitch. I broke the stitch in half with my tapestry needle, and that way my yarn will catch better. And I like to do this when I start and when I finish inserting and working the pass. So I'm starting the pass here, so I'm going to go to a stitch that's around where I just came out of, and I'm not going to pick up the whole stitch. I'm going to break the stitch in half when I come in. Then I'm going to work back through the stitches I just finished, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come out the center of the stitch. So that's 2 passes. If you're comfortable with your yarn at this point, you think it's very secure, you can stop there, but I always do 3 passes. So I'm just going to turn it around and do exactly the same thing, breaking the stitch here and weaving through. And I'm not pulling too tight because I don't want it to bulk up, to bunch up, and I'm just fastening off. That's my finished edge with that invisible join. And now I'm going to show you a different trick down here. Again, the reason why I don't work side to side is because it bunches that fabric up, and then there's less room for it to stretch as you need to use it. Because as you use the yarn, it will grow as you use this coaster. If you wash it, or if you're using this as a small washcloth, it's going to grow lengthwise. That's just the nature of how it works. But if you work your end in widthwise, now you're restricting this yarn from working the way you want it to work. It'll still stretch up and down, it just won't work the way that it's supposed to widthwise. So my secret is jewelry pliers. Jewelry pliers help your fingers so much when you're working with bulky yarn, difficult yarn, cotton yarn. Sometimes it's hard to pull the yarn through. So I'm going to go ahead and just insert my hook under a couple stitches here, as I normally would. And now this is the part, pulling the tail end through with the eye, that's the part where you get stuck. So you just want to make sure that the eye is facing you so you can see down through the eye. You don't want it to be the other way. You want to see down the eye and pull gently, because you can break the needle. So I'm just using my jewelry pliers to grab the tip of my needle, and I'm gonna pull it through. And this is why I said pull gently, because the end of your needle it's harder to pass through because it's bulkier, it has that yarn. So if you pull too hard, or if it's really stuck, then it will break the eye of the needle. And there's my pass. So then I'll turn it around and I'll go exactly how I normally would, breaking a stitch, go back through the same stitches I just worked, and then the eye of the needle is facing me, I can see down it, and I'll just grab my jewelry pliers and I will pull through. And my thumb on my left hand is holding the fabric where I'm pulling through, just for extra support. And once I get it past the thread that's been put into the needle, then I can put my pliers down and just pull it the rest of the way. That is my secret for working with cotton yarn. It is fantastic. I no longer have sore fingers, because before the insides of my thumbs would get just, I've developed calluses. They would just be so sore, or right here would be really sore. So now that I don't have that problem anymore. I just pull out my jewelry pliers. They're in my little crochet pouch. And now we're done. Just those two ends. And here's my finished coaster. And now I have a set. I have a set of 4. You can make a set of 6, a set of 8. You can make 2, you can make just 1. It depends what you're going to use it for. If you're going to gift them. If you're going to gift them, I would recommend a set of 6. That's the standard table setting. So now we have these finished coasters all ready for whatever beverage you decide to put on them. Or you can stack them up, put some ribbon around it, and give it as a gift. This would be really nice in a little gift basket with some flavored coffee and some creamers, or some tea and some creamers, or some honey. Just make like a whole little cute drink basket. That would be really nice. You could also do with sweet treats. Sometimes I don't use this for my coffee, but I will put like my muffin on it or an Oreo cookie or something. These are great because whatever food or drink spills on them, you just throw them into the washing machine and they clean right up. Guys, thanks so much for watching my video. I have the written pattern up on my blog, EyeLoveKnots.com. Please smash that like button and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.